Welcome back to the Broad Street Sports Podcast featuring Zachary Chaby, and today I'll just be giving you a recap on what's been going on in the world of sports, talking some football, baseball, hockey, and basketball starting tonight. So in football, give a quick recap of each game that happened in Week 7 this week, going from Thursday Night Football all the way to the Monday Night Football doubleheader we had last night. So starting with Thursday Night Football, we had the Broncos just destroying the Saints. I knew this game was going to be close from the beginning because the Saints didn't have most of their players. Olave's out, Derek Carr's hurt, and Rashid Shaheed is out for the year. So losing those guys was very rough. And then they lost Paulson Adebo during the game and Marshawn Lattimore, and they were coming off 4 straight losses. This was their 5th, and just putting a rookie quarterback out there with guys who are not very reliable in the game, it's never a great recipe for success. So that's the main reason they lost this game. But for the Broncos, just a good win, especially for Sean Payton getting a nice return win in New Orleans. So that's great for him. And just really other than that, good win for the Broncos. Great defense play by them. Moving on to the final London game of the season, the Jaguars and the Patriots. The Jaguars were able just to get the win. They didn't start off great, down 10-0 early, but then Trevor Lawrence was able to get a great connection going with Brian Thomas. Started the second quarter, and then after that, it was just a Jag steamroll over the Patriots. The Patriots scored a late touchdown, but overall, the Jaguars were able to sustain a good running game with Tanks Bigsby and De'Aaron Johnson. And overall, the Jaguars just did what they needed to get done for the Patriots. We all knew it was a rebuilding year, but this is just going to be bad for them, and I could very much see them being the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft. So, moving on to probably the game of the week, in my opinion, just like the matchup-wise, Lions and Vikings. The Lions hand the Vikings their first loss of the season, 31-29. Once again, Sam Darnold did what he needed to do, but this time it was not enough as Jared Goff just went into Minnesota and played a great game. Jahmyr Gibbs had an amazing game. Amon-Ra was involved in the offense. Khalif Raymond had a touchdown. And for anyone who had Jameson Williams in fantasy, me included, it was a rough week for him, but what are you going to do? And now he's suspended 2 games for using PED. I don't get it. Like, he's not even playing that good, and bro still had to use PhDs. I don't get it. But overall, just a great game. The Lions were able to get the win on a last-second field goal, and these two teams I believe will be probably the top for the NFC North right now, which is a very competitive division, which it's just great to see great football in one division, and that division's always been owned by the Packers, but now the Packers are taking a little bit back, but they're still got a very good team. But these teams like the Lions, Vikings, and then a young Bears team, they're all hungry and ready to win, and it's going to be interesting to see who ends up winning that division. So moving on to the Bills and Titans, Amari Cooper's debut in Buffalo, and it was just straight dominance from Buffalo. Tennessee had a nice start, but even with or without Will Levis at this point, it might be an advantage more than it is a disadvantage because he's playing that bad. And just for the Titans, it's just been a rough season for them so far. They're failing expectations for me very much so because they had great expectations going into the season with all the signings they made, and then just now responding to it is very tough. So I don't know what you're going to do from there, but for the Bills, just a great win. Moving on to the next game, the Colts and the Dolphins. Just a boring game. I didn't see much of this game, but the Colts just able to get the win, and the Dolphins just stagnant offense again this week. So maybe if Tua can come back, maybe they can get back on track and maybe win a couple games. So moving on to the next game, the Seahawks just destroyed the Falcons. I didn't expect this. I thought it was going to be a closer game, a little back and forth, but the Seahawks, coming off 3 straight losses, went into Atlanta and sent a message. They were ready to go in there and win, and their defense played great. Geno got the ball to DK Metcalf, and pretty much Kirk Cousins just wasn't able to stay up to standards with what the Seahawks offense was putting up there on the field. So moving on to another great game, the Packers and the Texans. This was a very run-heavy game. Josh Jacobs had a good game. Joe Mixon had a good game. 2 new running back additions from the AFC. And basically, the Packers, like another game, came down to a game-winning field goal by former Bronco, former Jag, Brandon McManus for the Packers. He just got signed, and he won the game for him. It pretty much came down to that. Other than that, it was a great game from both QBs. C.J. Stroud didn't have any touchdowns, but Jordan Love, I think, had a couple. But overall, just a great, well-defense, well-run game for both teams that are very much good contenders in their respective divisions. So moving on to the next game, the Bengals and Browns. The Bengals were just able to get a good win. It started off nice with a Charlie Jones 100-yard kick return touchdown to start the game. I think the first touchdown of Week 7, or the first touchdown of Sunday on Week 7. So, but really, other than that, Deshaun Watson tore his Achilles. He's done for the year. So I don't know how that's going to work for the Browns. It might be better, it might be worse. And then for the way he's been playing, it's still very unfortunate to see that injury. But at the same time, there's not much you can do with it because Watson, he's been playing like this for a while. But I mean, it should be interesting to see how they play moving forward from this, but not much to talk about that. Moving on to the next game, the Eagles, probably the best game they played all season, and Saquon Barkley. That man's amazing. That's all I got to say. He's a special type of player, just like a great guy overall. He went into MetLife and just told him to shove it. He pretty much went in there. He pretty much went into New York or went into New Jersey, went into MetLife Stadium, was like, this is what you get for not signing me, and I totally respect it. If I were him, I'd be very pissed off too. I mean, I know they could have signed him back. I know they offered him money, but at the same time, he just wanted to come and win, and he showed the Giants why he was their best player when he was there, and pretty much that's why he's been great so far. And I think so far the best running back in the league this season. I know McCaffrey's been hurt, but Barkley's just showing that if you put good pieces around him, he's just going to go up there and eat, and that's exactly what he did. And then for the Giants, I don't know where they move from here. They have a special type of player, Malik Neighbors, but Daniel Jones was just under pressure all game. Eagles had 8 sacks, and I don't know where they move from here, and they might be drafting a quarterback, but only constant thing they got on that offense is a special receiver in Malik Neighbors. So moving on to the next game, the 4 o'clock slate, the Rams and the Raiders. The Rams were able to get a solid win against the Raiders, 20-15. Aiden O'Connell, I think, broke his finger in that game and was taken out, and Gardner Minshew came in and got hit and resulted in a fumble 6 by Cam Curl. So really, other than that, just like a okay kind of game. But moving on to the next one, the Commanders just destroying the Panthers, and it was crazy. Jaden Daniels got hurt in this game with a rib injury, and I think they said his injury is week to week. They could have put him back in, but they knew they were up by so much it was not even necessary. So, but for the Commanders, they just keep winning. For the Panthers, I mean, there's just dumpster fire. It's just a dumpster fire for them at this point. You really can't say much else about it. And Commanders just needed to do what they needed to do at this point. So, moving on to the next game, the America's Game of the Week, Chiefs stay undefeated, beating the Niners 28-18, and Patrick Mahomes stays perfect against the Niners so far in his career. And for the Niners, the big story, both the receivers went down, but Brandon Ayuk's injury is a torn ACL, which he's out for the year. And then Deebo Samuel was suffering pneumonia, so they had to rush him to the hospital. He just got released out of the hospital, so hopefully he can make a speedy recovery and be ready for Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys, because they're going to need him, because Brock Purdy didn't look great in this game. I think he had 3 interceptions, so not a great sign for Purdy. And for the Niners, they're down to 3-4 now. They just can't stay consistent. They'll have a nice win, and then they'll have a game like this. I know Brock Purdy didn't have most of his targets, but at the end of the day, if you're the starting quarterback, you got to find a way to make plays, even with your star players not out there. He still had George Kittle out there. He still had Jordan Mason out there. I know this was Ricky Purcell's first career game, but at the same time, if you're the quarterback, especially the San Francisco 49ers, you got to find a way to improvise and make a play and help your team win, and he just wasn't able to do that. And for the Chiefs, great defensive played by them, and Mahomes, again, didn't play a great game, but played well when it mattered most, and that is exactly why the Chiefs are 6-0. So, moving on to Sunday Night Football, which came to a shock to me. I knew the Steelers were probably going to win. I just didn't know they were going to win by this much. Russell Wilson, first career game with the Steelers, and he went out there and balled. Like, he was playing great, got the ball to George Pickens, which made George Pickens very, very happy. So that's a great sign for Steelers fans, especially like, to get that guy the ball. He's a special type of player when he's got the ball in his hand, and Russell Wilson was able to distribute to him. He got a touchdown to Van Jefferson. Najee Harris looked great again this week, over 100 yards and a touchdown. And the Steelers just played their brand of football. And then for the offense, it just shows that the Jets aren't a good team, and trading for Devontae Adams is not going to change that. The Jets just aren't a great team at whole. Aaron Rodgers, I don't even know why he came back at this point. After tearing your Achilles, having an injury like that, I wouldn't even came back, but that's beyond me. But for the Jets, I don't see very much happening in the future for them, but we'll see what happens. And then the doubleheader on Monday night, the Ravens and the Buccaneers. Just Lamar right now, he's the MVP favorite again at this point. He just went into Tampa Bay and balled out, had 5 touchdowns. Derrick Henry had a nice game. But the big story of this game is, again, but this one's very big. Buccaneers lose Mike Evans. He scores a touchdown, but then he suffers a hamstring injury. He won't be back till at least week 11, they said. And then Chris Godwin, just very unfortunate. He got stuck under Roquan Smith. He just got, his leg got stuck under Roquan Smith, and I think his leg went the other way. So I think he's out for the rest of the year. And for the Bucs, Baker Mayfield's been playing so well so far. So I don't know where they're going to go from here, because those are two great wide receivers just out of the offense now. And at this point, it's really questioning what Todd Bowles was thinking there, keeping the players in when they were down by that much with limited time left. I would have just kept them on the bench and just put the backups in there, even though you're only down 10 points. You still got to protect the safety of your players, especially since one receiver already went down. You want to risk the help of another one, and unfortunately that's what happened. And for the Bucs, I don't know where they have to move from here, because now both the receivers are down at least till week 11. One of them is, and Chris Godwin's probably out for the year, so it should be interesting to see what happens. And then for the 9 o'clock game that was exclusively on ESPN+, the Cardinals were able to get a game-winning field goal against the Chargers. Just the Chargers, their offense is just so stagnant. It just has nothing to it. They had a chance to score early. Herbert threw a beautiful pass to Jalen Reagor, but classic Jalen Reagor, he fumbled at the 1-yard line, resulting in a touchback. And for the Cardinals, Kyler Murray didn't have a great game, had a nice 44-yard rushing touchdown, but really just a boring game about two teams that one could have an explosive offense, but is still growing in it, and the Chargers, you just have a stagnant offense. So moving on now to the MLB. I know I haven't done a recap in a while, but both championship series are over. The Dodgers were able to beat the Mets in 6 games. Shohei Ohtani came out and played. He had a nice couple of home runs in this series. Mark Vientos for the Mets played great. And overall, the Mets' magic just ran out. So great for the Dodgers finally getting back to that World Series after having that Mickey Mouse for an eye thing in 2020. Especially if they can win it this year. There's not many people saying, there's not going to be many people saying much that they can win it this year, because there won't be anything much to say. They have proven why they are where they are right now. And Shohei Ohtani is just a special kind of player. And you can't forget about guys like Tommy Edman, who deserved the NL MVP, bro. He was great, even though he didn't have a home run until Game 6. He was knocking batters in. I think he had 12, 13, 14 RBIs during the entire series. He was just their guy in the 5-hole getting hits for them, and that's the reason they won the series. The Dodgers got more. They came up clutch in more situations than the Mets could, and that's why they won the series in 6 games. And then for the Yankees, probably, in my opinion, the Guardians, when they won that Game 3, that was probably the best game in that series. The Yankees were down, came back off an Aaron Judge homer, and then Giancarlo Stanton hit a home run to take the lead. And then Big Christmas, Noel, he just hit a bomb. Probably just one of the farthest home runs probably ever hit in that stadium. It was just crazy. And then David Fry with the walk-off. That was probably one of the most craziest games I've ever seen. But then Juan Soto, that's why you trade for a guy like him. He came in clutch, and that is the reason they are going to the World Series. He is that type of player. He's been there before, so he knows what has to be brought to win that series, and he did exactly what he needed to do. So that's why they won the series. But now just moving on to the World Series itself, which will start on Friday, October 25th at 8:08 p.m. in LA. The Dodgers have home field advantage. But for me, what comes down to this series is what team is going to be able to pitch better against both these high-power offenses. And in my opinion, as of right now, if I'm looking at this series, I think the Dodgers right now are my favorites in this series, and I think the Dodgers will ultimately come out and win the World Series against the Yankees. But I think it's going to be a great series. Could easily go to 7 games, but very much excited for that to start. Moving on to the NHL, the season's starting. Every team has at least played 2 or 3 games so far. These are the current standings right now for Metropolitan and Atlantic, Central, and Pacific. Overall, not much crazy stuff to talk about. Every team's just getting adjusted into the new season, so should be interesting to see what happens. And then moving on to the NBA, which starts tonight with the reigning NBA champion Boston Celtics against a new powered Knicks squad at 7:30 tonight. So it should be interesting to see how that game is played. And then 10 o'clock tonight we got Timberwolves, and then LeBron and the debut of his son Bronny James. So We know that's going to be a big publicity tonight. So 2 great games on tonight for NBA fans, including myself. NBA season back in full. We got all 4 major sports back together again at the same time. So it's just going to be a good to watch. For the Sixers, they play tomorrow night against the Milwaukee Bucks. It already has been announced that Paul George and Embiid have been ruled out. Embiid will not play a single game this week, and Paul George is just should be reevaluated by the end of the week. So, and it was already talked about. Embiid, George, they're going to be on load management this season. They're not going to play many back-to-backs. I mean, I understand the philosophy of it. You want these guys to be healthy you want these guys to be healthy during the playoffs, but especially the Embiid, I understand. But for Paul George, he is a new player on this team. He is the new star player. You need him to gain chemistry with these guys, so when the playoffs do come, he's ready to play. And I feel like for Paul George, I respect the decision, or I'm not saying I respect the decision for Embiid. I understand the decision for Embiid because he's just an injury waiting to happen every year. But for a guy like Paul George, I feel like Mackey's going to need someone, and just putting Paul George in there is going to help the cause. So I feel like you can't make both of them not play back-to-back. I would at least let Paul George play. But that's the decision they're making. I mean, it worked for Nick Nurse when he did it with Kawhi Leonard, but that Raptor team was also really good. Pascal Siakam was coming into his own. Kyle Lowry was in his prime then, and then they traded for a guy like Marc Gasol. But at this point, as long as the Sixers can win a championship, that's all I care about. So, other than that, just gonna wrap up this quick recap of what's going on in the world of sports right now. Probably come out with an episode on Thursday or Friday, either doing my picks for the week or something like that. Other than that, that's going to wrap up today's episode. Thank you everyone for watching, and have a good rest of your day.